Getting ready? You're ready? Okay. So we we're almost at Shema. We're right there. You can feel it. Getting and then that, which means we're almost at Shemona Esrei as well, which is exciting. So we spoke last week about the Kedusha. Not the Kedusha that we think of, but same idea, same concept, the Kedusha that's in Birchot Kriyat Shema. And we mentioned a few different themes that we've been speaking about. And we started discussing Ahava Rabbah. I don't remember if we finished it. We'll go over it again just in the beginning. So Ahava Rabbah, we talked about Yotzer Or, that's the first bracha of Kriyat Shema before Shema. Then there's the second bracha of Kriyat Shema, which is Ahava Rabbah. And then the third, which is after Kriyat Shema. So we're still ways away from that. Okay, so just if we did this, I apologize. I don't think we did that. Good morning. So Ahava Rabbah. So we finished last week talking about the number 8. The number 8, if you remember, at the end of Yotzer Or, we mentioned 8 activities Hashem performs for us, corresponding to 8 planets, which again may be a different calculation of how they got to the number 8 of those planets in those days. But nonetheless, we continue our theme of 8. This is where we got off, where we ask Hashem to give us wisdom, Torah wisdom, as kol divrei salvator secha bi'ahava, and we ask in 8 different ways. How convenient. Continuing that number 8 again. 8, of course, is also L'mala min hateva, 1 above nature, 7 is nature, 1 is, so it's a nice, if maybe back in the day they used to have more $8 donations, when $8 was worth a lot more than $18. But okay, nonetheless, 8 is a special number in Judaism. So what are the 8 ways where we ask Hashem to give us Torah wisdom? Number 1, lehavim, we mentioned, means to understand the complete ideas. Difficult aspects of Torah study, that's lehavim. In modern day Hebrew, havim is to understand, maven. Lahaskil, that means to understand in order to be able to carry out and practice, to do it. Meaning it's not enough to just understand what you're talking about. It's like, had Rebbeim growing up, and you'd always say, do you understand the Gemara? And you'd say, yes, of course. And you'd say, well, explain it to me. And then you can't explain it to you. My mother, when we would study, she'd have me studying, so it would be, okay, you understand this? Yes. Okay, explain it to me. Well, I can't really explain it to you. No, if you can't explain it to me, then you don't know. It's true. In fact, that's what my Rebbe used to always say.
Does Lahaskil come from Seichel?
Sorry? Yeah, Lahaskil is Seichel, exactly. That's what Seichel is. We think of it, it's more than intellect. It's intellect with the ability to explain it to others. And I'll take it even a step further. My Rebbe used to always say that, one of my Rebbeim, Rabbi Shammai Warman in Israel, he used to always say that if you want to know anything in Torah, I would imagine this works in secular knowledge as well, but anything, you need to find a child of some sort and explain it to him or her. So that's what I've always understood. If you could, you know the Gemara well enough, you know the Mishnah well enough, if you could explain that to someone who's never learned it, doesn't understand, doesn't have a full comprehensive knowledge of Judaics or whatever it may be, so then you understand it. That's the way I was always taught it. That's the famous Einstein story. I don't think it's true, but I use it all the time. But you never heard this story? No. No, the kids the kid's struggling in math in the 4th and 5th grade. He's struggling in math, and so the teacher's begging him, "You do your homework, do your homework, do your homework." So he never does his homework. Good kid. And then one day comes in, beautiful, does his homework beautifully, shows the teacher's so proud. 2nd day, 3rd day, kids just turn a new leaf, so amazing. So she asked the kid, "What's changed in your life?" So he said, "Funny you should mention that. Every day on the bus stop, there's this older guy, today he'd get arrested, but there's this older guy who, we wait like 20, 30 minutes for the bus to go home, so he sits and he helps me with my math homework." So the teacher says, "Why don't you bring him into the school?" So Albert Einstein walks in, the next day. I doubt it's true, but it's a good story nonetheless. And the second part of the story is that Albert Einstein goes on to explain the theory of relativity to about 14 5th grade kids. And they knew it perfectly, because that's what a genius was. A genius is, or was in this case, someone who could explain something so difficult and make it on such an easy level. That's what I always say. These geniuses that I quote unquote meet, they don't impress me. I'm not impressed by these geniuses. What impresses me, if they could explain something so simple. They talk, I have no idea what they're saying. I don't even know if half the time anyone has any idea what they're saying. They just think they sound smart, so everyone says, "Oh, they're a genius." A genius is someone, lahaskil, who can explain it in a way that now you understand it. Doesn't have to be, a 7-year-old who has no knowledge. Someone, minimal knowledge. I'm definitely not a genius. I'm somewhere in between a genius and a fool. Probably closer to the latter than the former. So, if someone can explain something to me that I have no idea, nothing to do about, no clue what it's about, you could explain it to me, and now I understand it, that person's highly intelligent in my mind. That's the haskil. The haskil is where we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to understand it in order to actually do it, in order to be able to carry out in practice what we learn in theory. That's that's what seichel is. Seichel is more than just intelligence. It's intellect, it's mind over, I would say. Okay, that's number 2. So we have Lahavim, Lahaskil.
Common sense.
Common sense, which is not so common, according to Mark Twain. But it's true. Okay, Lishmoa. Lishmoa means that we have to be ready to listen. Probably refers to listening to the Rabbanan. Lilmod means we have to review our learning until it becomes a part of our knowledge, more than understanding it, more than just reviewing it until it's a part of us. Lilamed means that we have to share our knowledge with others. It's an important criteria. We're all teachers. We mentioned this last week. This is where we got up to, I believe. We mentioned that we're all teachers, no matter where you are in life. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant or a lawyer. You're a teacher in many ways, shapes, and forms. Okay, a lishmor means we have to guard our knowledge in case we forget it. Part of reviewing, similar aspect to that. La'asos means to carry out the commandments. And ulekayim tells us to fulfill those commandments in such a way that we can change purely mechanical action into something meaningful, a meaningful performance of some kind. That's the way I would describe ulekayim. Okay, so those are the 8 ways, continuing our theme with 8. Usually, we say, this is where we got to, that you should finish the bracha before the chazan. Right? That's usually the rule, so you can answer amen to the bracha. Better, sometimes easier said than done, the chazan's too fast, fine. But if you're at a similar speed to the chazan, then in a perfect world, especially let's say by brachos hashachar, so the best case scenario is you say the bracha quickly, not quickly. You say the bracha a little bit faster than the chazan, just a little bit. So this way you can answer amen. It's like buy one, get one free. You get to answer amen to the chazan saying his bracha. Perfect. So everyone wins. You get to say your bracha, and then you get to answer amen to someone else's bracha. Many have that minhag. We'll see husbands and wives, or whatever it may be, where the husband will say the brachos out loud, the wife will answer amen, and the wife will say the brachos out loud, the husband, it's a beautiful minhag, it's getting a lot of amens, it's definitely not a bad idea.
Well, you
so,
better tell your shabbos cross on Shabbos.
I'm sorry?
You better tell your cross.
Depends who davens from the elder. Yeah. So that is true. That is a fair point. That's what I said, depending on the speed. Okay, so that's usually the way it works, right? We want to answer amen to the chatzim, so we have to finish our paragraph before he gets to that bracha.
You also need to stress the word ba'ahava.
Correct. Bi'ahava.
That's a very important
Yeah.
essence of all the things that we do in our Torah life.
Absolutely. Bi'ahava. Right? It has to be in love. We mentioned last week v'ha'arevna, that we ask Hashem to make the Torah sweet for us. It's more than just nafshi cholas ahavasecha. We say in Yidid Nefesh. It's like we have to be lovesick. It's more than just love or enjoyment. It's much more our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Of course, we refer you to Shir HaShirim, where it's all a love story in that respect. But that's this bracha of behava. Very good point. So I know that's the rule. The rule is we want to finish the bracha, let the chazan make the bracha, then we can answer amen. Right? Because if we're still in the middle of our paragraph, we can't answer amen. We miss out on an amen. Not the end of the world. Everyone should go at their own pace. But in an ideal world, that's what would happen. Except, there's one exception, maybe 2. The one exception would be the bracha of Habocher B'Mo Yisrael B'Ahava, which again is right before Shema, where the Shulchan Aruch would want you to finish the bracha at the same time as the chazan, perhaps even after, not before. Why? He doesn't want you to answer amen. Does not want you to, at least according to the Shulchan Aruch. That's because the art school goes like the Ramah. Very good. The Ashkenazim seem to differ, but at least the Sfaradim, I believe, they do not want you to answer amen. We'll see what we do. But they do not want you to answer amen because it would be a hefsek. It would be an interruption between the bracha of Habocher B'Mo Yisrael B'Ahava and Shema. We want you to go right from that bracha into Shema. Even though the word Amen doesn't sound like much of a hefsek, in theory it could be, at least according to the Shulchan Aruch. So the Shulchan Aruch says, I have an idea, just take your time, and finish it either at the same time, would be best, so this way you don't fall behind. Just finish at the same time as the chazan, this way you don't have the opportunity to answer Amen. Okay, so let's discuss, hold on one second.
Even in Bulgarian Jewish.
Let's talk about the next one. Okay, next, that's
It
exactly.
says amen here in the city.
Very good.
That's what it says.
Yeah, the Art Scroll seems to not follow this opinion. It's interesting. First things first, Art Scroll's not the posek hador. It seems to have come that way for many reasons. But you're right. Art Scroll does seem to follow the opinion of the Ramah, which we'll see in a second. But it's a fair question. So let's address the question. Are you able to answer Amen? I want to get another Amen in. It's good. The more Amens, the better. So are you able to answer Amen after Abul Cher B'Mol Yisrael Be'ava? Let's say I want to. So the Shulchan Aruch says, Lo Yana Amen. So Shulchan Aruch says, no, don't answer Amen. Achar Siyum Habul Cher B'Mol Yisrael Be'ava. After you finish the bracha of Abul Cher B'Mol Yisrael Be'ava, Mishum Dehavi Hefsek. He says clearly it is a hefsek. It's an interruption. You can't do it. So the Shulchan Aruch is not like Art Scroll. It's the other way around. Sorry. The Art Scroll is not like Shulchan Aruch. The reason is, you see, he believes, and now we'll see the reason for why Art Scroll stuck in the Amen there. But the reason is that he believes it's the bracha rishona. It's the previous bracha, sort of like the first bracha for Shema. It's almost like it's part one of Shema. See, it's not like we have two brachas of Kriyat Shema, then Shema, then one bracha after, then Shemona Esrei. So according to the Shulchan Aruch, he suggests that no, Habocher B'Mol Yisrael B'Ava is like part A of Shema. So then you can go right in, and even if you answer Amen, and you have to go right in, and then you can't answer Amen, because it's really like the beginning of Shema. You can't have an interruption between the bracha for the commandment and the performance of the commandment. That's why we know, we were joking last week, but it's true with the Netilas Yadayim, right? The bracha of Netilas Yadayim, the action of washing, gets you to the bracha of Hamotzi, which gets you to the action of eating the bread, right? But you shouldn't have an interruption in between that time period. So that's the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch says don't answer Amen. However, as you saw in the Art Scroll Center, the Ramah says v'yimayir l'sayim kodem she'yisayim ha'shliach tzibor v'yane Amen achar shliach tzibor. You should answer Amen. So it's two different, totally ends of the spectrum there. You should finish quickly, or at least like we usually do, quickly. You have to race through here. It's an important bracha. But you should go ahead, just like any bracha, where you want to finish before the chazan, so you can answer Amen. Why? I thought it could constitute a hefsek. At the very least, maybe we should be concerned it might be an interruption, it might be a hefsek. But he says, the Ramah says, the brachos of Kriyat Shema, they're not part of Shema. It's not part A of Shema. It's not the bracha rishona of Shema. That's not what it is. They're an elaboration of the paragraphs of Shema, maybe, but they're not an extension. That's the way he understands it. Right? We said before, 3 brachos of Kriyat Shema parallel the 3 brachos of Kriyat Shema. So 3 paragraphs, 3 brachos, they're number 3 again. But the Ramah says you should answer Amen. Or at the very least, do not have to be concerned with answering Amen. That's the way I would say.
I'm trying to think. I don't think I hear people saying amen.
Most don't.
Yeah, and I don't.
Most don't. I'll be honest.
No, I don't.
And most do not. And we'll see why. We'll see why in a second. Linda.
They put it
Even.
But they put it in Art Scroll.
Even.
Linda's
What about the Bulgarian Jewish community? I mean, do they say?
I'm not familiar with I'll be honest, I don't want to pretend that I'm familiar with all the minhagim of the Bulgarian Jewish community, but I'd be interested to hear what they say. But yeah, or Sfaradim in general. I imagine Sfaradim do not answer Amen because they go like the Shulchan Aruch generally.
Here's one, Dan. You don't say Sfardim in general because each community has
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So that's why
Correct. Not everyone is right.
Everyone is different.
Persians, Bukharian could be a little different. Meraki, sure. Absolutely. Fair point.
I once attended a lecture on Tehillim, and this is years ago, and what's my takeaway? In the lecture, she said, when people daven up quickly, they skip Hava Rabbah. She says, that's one tefilah you should never skip.
Right?
And that was my takeaway from that whole lecture maybe 15 years ago. But I remember
There you go.
when I daven up, because people in a hurry always try to skip Hava Rabbah. Don't skip
Don't
that.
skip Abba Rabbah. Get us ready. It gets us right into Shema. According to the Shulchan Aruch, it's really part A of Shema. And even according to the Ramah, it's still the important introduction to Kriyat Shema. Excellent. Okay, so why? Why does the Ramah say that you should answer amen? Shouldn't this be a hefsek? So he says that it's the elaboration, right? You have three paragraphs three brachos, paralleling the three paragraphs of Shema, of brachos Kriyat Shema, I should say, the brachos of Shema. But it's not like the bracha Rishona where you can't constitute as a hefsek. You can't make a hefsek. So the Ramah, interestingly enough, holds like Rashi. Rashi in the Gemara says that the sof brachos Kriyat Shema shachas arbis v'achar kol brachos of the Ktanim B'Raisa are meshubach. That you're allowed to answer amen after your own bracha, interestingly enough, if it's at the end of a series of brachos, which this is. So even if it was your own bracha, which is an interesting concept for another time, what are you answering? When you usually answer amen after a bracha, it's because you're answering amen after someone else's bracha. So you're saying amen, as in you agree with that. If it's your own bracha, can you answer amen after your own bracha? So Rashi says, if it's at the end of a series, then you can. So the Ramah says, even if it's your own bracha here, which it sounds like it is, right? It's your own bracha before Kriyat Shema, so you can answer amen because it's the end of the series. So again, Rashi's not understanding this bracha as a part A, the Shema. He's almost the end of part A, and now part B is a totally different subject of Shema. Okay, so you would say you're allowed to answer amen. Should you answer amen is the question. We'll get to in a second. ArtScroll seems to follow, at least allow you the opportunity to answer amen by writing amen in parentheses. Although I once saw a siddur that had, I don't think it's in that one, that it was like, some say amen, or it was like, it wasn't like bolded, it was like, as if to say.
This one, I see a lot of them here.
I think so. I think the older one said, I think that was like DE, all my friends in the OU say DE, dairy equipment, they stopped that, although I think they're bringing it back. It got too confusing. People were, DE, what does that mean? Dairy, so they just stopped it. Dairy is, and then I think they're bringing it back. Oreos was the classic case of DE, because it wasn't dairy, but it was cooked. Trader Joe's pretzels. There you go. Okay, so the Ramah does say, interestingly enough, that a yachid, one davening by him or herself, should not answer amen. So he does say that. So don't answer amen in that respect, because then he says, there's a Tosfos in Brachos that says, the only time you answer amen when davening alone, after a series of brachos, is at the end of benching. You'll notice at the end of benching, you answer amen, sort of bonei bracha v'yushalayim. Amen. Well, what are you answering amen to? It's your own bracha. That's because it's the end of the series of brachos. There are 4 brachos in benching. The third is really the end of it. That's the deoraisa aspect, the biblical aspect. The rest is the Rabbanan. Was instituted much later on in Jewish history. But nonetheless, I think that's what they're talking about across the way. But nonetheless, that might be the only time you do that, when you're by yourself. So someone by themselves would not answer amen, which I think we've become accustomed to. We don't answer amen to our own brachos anyways, but just in case. So let's say you're in shul. What should we do? It's interesting. I know what ArtScroll says. But Rav Soloveitchik recommended, look, if you can, just conclude the bracha concurrently with the chazan, let's just say at the same time perhaps, to avoid the problem altogether. Then you don't have to be in a position where you might have to answer amen. If you finish before, then you really have to answer amen. You have to answer amen when you hear a bracha. Otherwise, you don't believe in the bracha. It's not a good thing to not answer amen. So he did not like, interestingly enough, when the chazan would try to avoid the problem by saying the bracha softly. You may have heard that. Some, I don't like that. I personally do not encourage that behavior. You'll see that by Ga'al Yisrael, we'll talk about before Shemon Esrei, where the chazan will say Baruch Atah Hashem, and then he'll stop. He'll say Ga'al Yisrael to himself. This way, he feels like no one has to answer amen. Rav Soloveitchik did not like that, because he felt like it's a bracha. What are you doing? Why are you stopping? It sounds like you just stopped in the middle of a bracha, which you did. He held the chazan's job. If we need a chazan today, which we believe we do somewhat, maybe not as imperative as it was before the printing press for sure, when no one had their own siddur and they were being yotzei with every word the chazan was saying. But nonetheless, he held the chazan's job was to say every word out loud, especially the conclusions of brachos. So he didn't like that as a possibility. You'll see that in some shuls. Less litvach shuls. You'll see that where people will, Baruch Atah Hashem, the chazan will say, and then quietly, so this way no one answers amen. That doesn't really help, because you're not doing your job as your chazan. Got to say it out loud. Okay, so what should you do? I personally follow the opinion of Rav Soloveitchik that I try my hardest to say the bracha with the chazan, so this way I don't have an opportunity to answer amen, and then I go right into Shema. But theoretically, if you did finish the bracha before, then you you would answer Amen, but it sounds like that's not an issue. That Chazan's too fast here, so we have it's good. So there's a good thing.
Never been a problem.
Never been a problem. 70 years of the shul that we haven't had many people complain that that they haven't had the opportunity to answer Amen. So there you go. Maybe it's one benefit to having a fast chazan. At least one place in davening where it's somewhat of a benefit. Not saying it's worth it, but just throwing that out there. Okay, always trying to find the silver lining. Okay, let's get to Shema. Well, he started today. We still have some time. Okay, before we say Shema, we say 3 words. You'll notice. Kel melech ne'eman. Okay, where does this come from? Well, the Shulchan Aruch says, it's quoting the Medrash Tanchuma, that Shema contains, you'll notice, count them up, 248 words. Don't count them up now, but you'll trust me in this. 248 words. Why is that number significant? Very good. Ramach Ibarim. Because we have 248 organs in our body, although most doctors don't agree with that, but okay. Okay, maybe they thought they did or they did, I don't know. Anyone here a medical professional?
Here it says you only count off Naaman when praying.
We'll get there. Very good. Oh, you're good. That's my next line. But before that, I don't know. Anyone here a medical professional? No. No? Okay. I don't think we have 248 organs, but I could be wrong. I thought that's somewhat. Whatever, it's understanding which organs or types of organs, but okay. That's, this isn't a biology class. But okay. Nonetheless, well, let's, what? And we have, and Ramach Ibarim, Keneged. Well, that's how we have the mitzvahs. The 248 positive commandments, right? Shesal Lavim, we have 365 negative commandments and 248 positive commandments. Add them together, we know we get 613. So Ramach Ibarim, 248 limbs, Keneged, corresponding to the 248 positive commandments. Okay, excellent. So 248 words of Shema, the number 248, Ramach. That's a good one. That's another good donation amount. That's a little higher than Chai though. But I get, occasionally you get a $248 donation. You know, I always wonder what the IRS thinks about this. What, 248, 118, 36? Can't you just round up?
Excuse me, Rabbi. What does Ramach mean?
Ramach is just the gematria. Resh Mem Ches means 248. Okay. So 248 limbs in our body.
Resh is 200,
Mem's 40, Ches is 8.
Okay.
It's easier with a chalkboard. Yeah, but so 248 limbs in our body, 248 positive commandments, 248 words in Shema. What's the problem though? Count them up. There aren't 248 words in Shema. I can't tell you to count up who are radiologists in the show, Dr. Konigsberg. Can't have you look at someone's all their at least bones. I can't say organs. That you need more than a radiologist. But nonetheless, to get that. But the problem is count them up. We can count up the words in Shema, and we don't get to.
45.
Very good. We're 3 words short. We're so close. It's almost like they were so close. It's like such a cute, cool gematria idea. You're so close, but you're off by 1, which you're allowed to according to gematria rules. That is why we're 3 words off. So that's why we say, Kel Melech Naaman. Get us to 248. 248 limbs, 248 positive commandments. Excellent. However, as we just said, the Ramah holds, we only say Kel Melech Naaman if you are saying Shema without a minyan. Interestingly enough, without a minyan. So if you're saying Shema without a minyan, then you say Kel Melech Naaman. But if you're in shul with a minyan, you don't say Kel Melech Naaman. Excellent. There you go. Because then you get repetition of Hashem Elokecha Emet by the Chazan, which gets you to your 248. So we don't need 251. We need 248. So 245, too little. 251, too much. 248, just right. Okay. So if you are davening with a minyan, you don't say these 3 words because the Chazan is going to repeat the words of Hashem Elokecha Emet, which will get you to 248. Interestingly enough, the Rav Soloveitchik never said Kel Melech Naaman. Even when he was davening without a minyan, he considered it, based off what we learned before, it's a hefsek, it's an interruption. Just like if you can't answer Amen to Abocher B'Amo Yisrael B'Avav B'Shema, then you can't throw in these 3 words just to get you the nice idea of 248. So he had never to say it, but nonetheless, we generally say it. It's nice. It's a nice introduction into Shema.
Is this the only place where gematria counts? I mean, it's like...
Well, that we care about gematria. Chait on Rosh Hashanah. That's my most common shaila I get asked on Rosh Hashanah is, can I have nuts?
And it doesn't add up.
Can I have it? And it doesn't even add up. It's one off. It depends how you spell chait. You spell with an aleph, then an extra aleph. Yeah. So, some gematrias are kept more than others, I would say. they're cooler than others. I don't know why. I don't, in my humble opinion, I feel like if there is some significance to gematria, I can't imagine these are too many, it's all a coincidence, but I just don't understand it. It sounds to me like it's more Kabbalistic and more of on a spiritual plane that I'm not. It's way above my pay grade. So that's my reaction. When you'll hear me quote a gematria, it has to be very clear though. If you have to carry the one and use a calculator, I'm not going to do it. So that's usually unless it's a really cool one. It really works to stress my point.
Rabbi Gladstein,
Yeah, he goes way
way overboard.
Yeah, he's really into it, and it's totally up to. I think some people are really into it, which is good. They were probably good at math, and they appreciate the math. If I need a chalkboard or a calculator, that's usually where I stop. Okay, let's at least begin the actual Shema so we can get into it.
So, can I just have
Next.
one more question?
Yes, please, of course.
It says lahavin or lahaskil, but what about the mitzvahs that we don't understand? Should we
Ah,
ask
very
Hashem
good.
to,
Yeah, so we do that elsewhere. We have what's called mishpatim and chukim.
Right.
I had that in the parashiyos actually recently. So chukim and mishpatim. So yeah, we ask Hashem that we don't need to understand the chukim though. We ask Hashem to be able to allow us to keep the commandments that are chukim. Again, mishpatim we understand, chukim we don't. So, the paraduma, etc., the shatnez, the classic chukim, if you will. But yeah, we don't, you're saying why don't we have number 9? Because that ruins my theme of 8.
Well, maybe you should also dive that Hashem should give us, to
Yeah,
mitzvahs that we don't understand.
I don't think it's crazy to say that we have 8 understanding, 8 ways of I assume maybe lahaskil is also that. Could be lahavin. You could make the argument lahavin is this, lahaskil is that. Could be. Interesting observation though. But yeah, I don't know. We don't find that we really ask Hashem to understand the chukim. We don't pretend. Shlomo Melech didn't pretend. I think that's our litmus test. Shlomo Melech understood that he in his incredible wisdom.
Concept is what if someone comes up and says, "No, I do understand. Am I allowed to do that?"
Right. We're allowed to provide. Well, I'll say it like this. The Rambam says you are allowed. Again, the Rambam is the most rational person ever to live. The Rambam says you're allowed to give yourself a reason for a mitzvah that is not provided by the rabbis if it helps you do that mitzvah. So, which is an interesting way of looking at it. The point being that sometimes we have a ta'amei mitzvah, a reason for the mitzvah. Sometimes we don't. You want to give yourself a reason so that you do the mitzvah. Geg is into. No, that's allowed. You want to start theologically discussing various, that I don't think it's not allowed. A lot of Rishonim discuss this. You could give yourself a reason if it helps you sleep at night. We run into not to get too much into theology. That is my master's degree it was taught by Jesuits, so you have to understand everything with that hat on. But that's who was that guy? Kushner? No, who was the guy who wrote the book Why Bad Things Happen to Good People? Conservative brother.
Kushner.
Right. So Kushner's right. He's a heretic, right? He denies the omnipotence of God. That's his way of understanding the contradiction of the Holocaust, right? That's right, and that's one way to do it. We don't believe in that. He denies the omnipotence of God. Now, to his defense, Nebuch he lost a son at the age of 4 to a terrible, terrible degenerative illness. So his line in his book is either I could lose my faith in God. He chose to lose his faith in God. He chose to deny the omnipotence of God but keep God. That's the way he understands it. So that's we can't judge to an extent. Although when you start publishing works, then we can start judging. But and when you make Judaism look bad, we can start judging. But the point being that certain things, I don't think it's heresy to suggest a reason, but when you start to deny one of the Yud Gimel Midos, one of the Yud Gimel Ikarim of the Rambam, then I have problems. But I think, you understand, right? Yeah, I don't, I think it's the Chavetz Chaim. The Chavetz Chaim was the last of the Rabbanim to offer reasons for why bad things happen. It used to be that was the theme. You see this in Jewish literature all the time until the early 20th century. The Chavetz Chaim, they stopped, which is obviously appropriate of what happened next. But that was a theme. Oh, this is why there was a crusade. Or this is why there was a pogrom in Russia, and that's whether they're right or wrong. That was common.
They
they still over, I remember after the World Trade Center, somebody said,
Yeah, but
women weren't dressing modest.
so let me say like this, Rebecca. No one of value. Can that be? Can I say that? Anyone tells you why there's a terrorist attack in Israel because of women's sneas, you can disregard him with Nebuch. He's probably not mentally stable, right? I mean, that's the way I look at people who come over to me and say, you know why the Holocaust happened? Because people don't keep, whatever it is. So Nebuch, they're unstable. They're that's not why 6 million Jews died. I'm sorry to say, it's not why thousands of people lost their lives in World Trade Center. But should women be dressed? Yes. Should men be careful more? Should we stop saying Lashon Hara? Should we treat our wives better? Yes, absolutely. But I don't know. It's just no way to tell that in this world. But apparently it was very common until early 20th century. I don't think it's heresy to do it. I just think you got to be careful and you have to have better backing than just saying an obscure medrash that seems to say it. But interesting.
It's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair with me. Okay, we could stop here. We'll get to the actual part of Shema next time. Next week we're on